What do The Big Show, Jinder Mahal, and King Mabel all have in common? They were all in World Heavyweight Championship matches at the next batch of SummerSlams. We are just 5 days away from the 2019 WWE Summerslam, and to celebrate the biggest party of the summer, we here on Watch Along Wrestling are counting down every SummerSlam of all time, ranking them from absolute worst to the greatest SummerSlam event of all time. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Tommy on the spot. Thanks so much for checking us out here on Watch Along Wrestling. If it's your first time joining the channel, leave a big thumbs up and subscribe to Watch Along Wrestling. We're going to have an absolutely crazy week this week. It's the finals of the G1 tournament. It's SummerSlam 2019. You've got NXT TakeOver, so much more. You never know what else is going to come down the pipeline here. And it's great to just be on here and chatting with each and every one of you and talking about one of my favorite events of the year, WWE Summerslam. If you guys are looking for the worst SummerSlams of all time, well, look down below, right in the description below. I'm going to post a link to yesterday's video where I went through my choices for the 5 worst SummerSlams of all time. Today, SummerSlams are a little better, and we're making our way down to the top 20, which will kick off tomorrow. So without any further ado, let's get to number 26 on the countdown. Number 26, SummerSlam 2012. I'd said earlier that many of the SummerSlams of these most recent years probably have better in-ring action than a lot of the SummerSlams from the early 90s or even late 90s. That said, though, many of these shows sort of blend together, and that's the case here with SummerSlam 2012. The show was really built on the first in-ring match, at least since his return, of Brock Lesnar taking on Triple H. And while the match itself wasn't bad, and actually was pretty cool because Brock Lesnar started instituting the Kimura lock, which was a throwback to his UFC days, and Triple H started to take advantage of the diverticulitis that Brock Lesnar had been forced to retire from MMA from and return to WWE. That's really the only thing on this show that you could really sink your teeth into. The world title match, while CM Punk is still in the middle of his long title reign, he's now just turned heel, and it's not exactly something that fans necessarily want to accept. He's in a triple threat match with The Big Show and John Cena, and despite him being a heel, the crowd is 100% behind him, because at the end of the day, no one really wanted to cheer for John Cena in 2012, and The Big Show is, well, The Big Show. Elsewhere on the card, you do have Chris Jericho taking on Dolph Ziggler in a pretty okay match, but you also have the primetime players taking on R-Truth and Kofi Kingston in a tag match that doesn't make much sense as to why this is on the card. There's just a lot of filler on this card. There's not much to sink your teeth into. Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio is okay, but not necessarily something that should be a world title caliber match, specifically at SummerSlam. So that is why SummerSlam 2012 is so low on our countdown. Number 25, SummerSlam 1990. SummerSlam 1990 was built around a double main event of The Ultimate Warrior defending the WWE Championship against ravishing Rick Rude and Hulk Hogan taking on Earthquake. And really it was meant more around Hulk Hogan taking on Earthquake. Earthquake had kind of jumped on the scene. He destroyed Hulk Hogan going into this show and really had a ton of heat behind him. And despite the fact that he looked probably like he was in his late 30s, was only in his mid-20s at the time. So you did have a big monster heel going up against Hulk Hogan, and that had a good amount of heat going into it. But the aforementioned Ultimate Warrior vs. Rick Rude kind of felt like law of diminishing returns. They had a really good feud in 1989, but at this point it felt like, why is Rick Rude back and why is he fighting the Ultimate Warrior again, let alone in a steel cage match? Didn't really make much sense. The match itself left a lot to be desired, with the Ultimate Warrior seemingly taking forever to get out of the cage. As for Hogan and Earthquake, it ended in a countout, which I think takes a lot away from the match, but I understand that they wanted to keep the feud going. This show, though, is remembered, in my opinion, for probably the best tag team match in the history of SummerSlam, as you have the Hart Foundation taking on Demolition in a 2 out of 3 falls match, which really ends as kind of a passing of the torch when the Legion of Doom shows up, and it's almost like WWE had decided at the time that they were moving and transitioning from Demolition over to the Road Warriors. That's a great match, and there's a really cool moment when the Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich wins the Intercontinental Championship, but other than those two matches, this show also leaves a lot to be desired. Number 24, SummerSlam 1995. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I do have a fondness for the mid-1990s. I mean, that's really what I kind of grew up on. Mid-1990s WWF. As hokey and silly as it may have been, it was my WWF, damn it, and I have some fondness for it. But at the end of the day, I could only hold off on SummerSlam 1985 for so long. While this does have an incredible ladder match rematch from WrestleMania 10 between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, and an underrated opener between Hakushi and the 1-2-3 Kid, that's pretty much it. The rest of this card, let's just run through some of this. You have three of your biggest stars. You have Big Daddy Cool Diesel, Undertaker, Bret Hart. I don't know if they had a contest to decide how they could underutilize these three guys more, but The Undertaker takes on Kama, no disrespect for the Godfather, but he hadn't reached that pimpery yet, so he's still Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine. You have Bret Hart taking on Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS, and no disrespect to Kane, but Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS is no Kane. And then you have Big Daddy Cool Diesel in the main event taking on King Mabel. Following one of the worst King of the Ring events of all time, WWE continued their push of Mabel and threw him in the main event of SummerSlam. Yes, I'm serious. It's just ridiculous. On top of that, you have Barry Horowitz on this show taking on Bodydonna's Skip. Gets a little hate though. I mean, Barry at the time was doing a pretty cool deal, and it was cool to see him kind of rise up the ranks and finally get a couple of wins under his belt after numerous years of being an absolute job guy. And you also have the Blue Brothers versus the Smoking Guns. That's right, the Blue Brothers versus the Smoking Guns. Nowhere on this show are Yokozuna and Owen Hart, by the way, because that wouldn't make any sense to have those guys on the show. Number 23, SummerSlam 2018. Boy, my track record of SummerSlam isn't so good, is it? I mean, I've already now had two shows that I've attended live that have already been on our countdown, and we aren't even in the top 20. But yes, last year's edition of SummerSlam falls right here, and it's really disappointing because there was a lot of hype going into this show. You had Daniel Bryan taking on The Miz, a match that had been built over for years. You had Samoa Joe taking on AJ Styles, reviving their rivalry from their TNA days. And you had the return of Dean Ambrose coming back to second Seth Rollins in his battle against Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. But for some reason, they gave the return away on Raw going into this show in an era where they don't have to promote pay-per-view buys because everyone has the network. In any event, this show is remembered, though, for the transition of Becky Lynch from mid-card woman superstar to the man that we all know today and we all respect, and who's going to be on the cover of WWE 2K20. And while we always respected and liked Becky Lynch, this was the first time that I think WWE tried to see what they had. Granted, they did try to turn Becky heel, but it was the moment everyone remembers from this show. No one was expecting it as a heel turn, and everyone was really excited to see that Becky Lynch was standing up for herself against Charlotte for jumping and inserting herself into her world title match and making it a triple threat match. Sound familiar? Of course, the end of the show features Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, a rematch of the WrestleMania 34 main event that everyone booed out of the building and no one wanted to see again. But WWE was smart this time because they knew that despite putting this on as the main event, that A, the Barclays Center was going to sell out regardless, and B, they had a plan. You see, do you remember a time when Braun Strowman was the most over guy in WWE? And can you believe it was only just last year? Well, remember, Braun Strowman had your Money in the Bank briefcase, and all weekend long, everyone wanted to get these hands and see Braun Strowman cash in his Money in the Bank. Thing is, WWE knew this and decided, hey, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to have Braun Strowman come out and guarantee that at the end of the match, he's going to cash in his Money in the Bank. This sent the live crowd into a frenzy. They didn't care about the match that was currently going on, but they were amped up, they were excited because they knew that Braun was standing right outside that ring, and when this was over, it was cash-in time, baby. But it wasn't, because Braun was taken out, they quickly went off the air, and when they went back in and the crowd realized that Braun Strowman wasn't cashing in, they were already off the air, so you didn't hear the crowd boo. You were sitting at home. Smart, WWE. Real smart. Number 22, SummerSlam 2017. That's right, now we go back 2 years. The show actually I was not at. I tried to go, but I couldn't get in because the show was absolutely sold out, packed to the rafters. People so excited about this right here in New York because at the time, they thought that this was the final SummerSlam of the 3-year deal that WWE had signed with New York to bring SummerSlam here from 2015 to 2017. They'd end up extending that to 2018, but this was an impossible show to get tickets for. And with good reason. There was a majorly cool main event on this show, a fatal four-way between Braun Strowman, Samoa Joe, Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns. I mean, these four guys just absolutely killed it, and it was a really cool moment seeing Samoa Joe take in the big chant of Joe, 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 Joe from the Barclays Center crowd as he came into the ring. But that's really kind of all that's on this show. There's not much else here. I mean, I love Shinsuke Nakamura, but he's in a world title match against Jinder Mahal. That's right, don't hinder Jinder, but this is in the middle of Jinder's world title reign, and there's just not much else on the show. It is cool to see the Shield reunion between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose coming together to take on The Bar, but again, it just feels like there was something missing from SummerSlam 2017, and that's why it's all the way down here on our list. Number 21, SummerSlam 1994. Man, it was hard for me not to put this SummerSlam in the top 20 because there's probably one of the top 5 best matches in the history of SummerSlam on this show, in which Bret Hart takes on Owen Hart in a rematch from their WrestleMania 10 Classic, this time in a steel cage. One of the best feuds probably of all time is Bret Hart versus Owen Hart in the middle of 1994. That moment where Owen defeats Bret to start WrestleMania 10, but at the end of the show, Bret wins the title and he's being held up, celebrated by all the big baby faces at the time, only to look up the aisleway and see Brother Owen like, damn it, this son of a gun got me again. So good. And this match lives up to it. An incredible cage match. Probably, in my opinion, the best cage match, at least with the big blue cage in WWE history, perhaps of all time. A great, great match. On top of that, you've got a great Bull Nakano versus Alundra Blaze match way before the Women's Evolution. This match is fantastic. Go back out of your way and check this match out. On top of that, you also got Razor Ramon versus Diesel for the Intercontinental Championship, featuring Walter Payton, an NFL Hall of Famer. So maybe the show should have been higher, but at the end of the day, Undertaker versus Underfaker, a really bad main event. A match that, if got nothing else other than anyone at the time to not give away any spoilers, because I wouldn't watch the shows live, they would go, not to give anything away, The Undertaker wins the main event. And that's really all I remember from this show in terms of that main event. There's nothing that I even remember about it, but it was just not a very good match. It only lasted a couple of minutes, probably a couple of minutes too long even at that. Just brutal main event, and it shows how a main event can really bring down an entire card. Despite 3 great matches being on the show, that's the reason why this SummerSlam is just outside of our top 20. So that is going to do it. Let me know in the comment section what you're thinking about the countdown so far. Has your favorite already been on the SummerSlam countdown? Have I completely gotten this wrong? Is there anything that's coming up that you think should have been on the countdown? Again, let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what's your favorite WWE SummerSlam event. Until next time, everybody, I am Tommy on the Spot for Watch Along Wrestling. We'll see you again real soon.